Okay. So speaking about, having a say about what goes on in the land. Now, I listened to a very influential lady, talk about how she felt, that transient van lifers were being mistreated. Okay? And I was listening and she was like, oh, they're being treated like hobo not bums, right? But in a sense, they're not really bums, but they're hobos. They're people that move, even though, they've pretty much escaped the system. Now, they think escaping the system is a beautiful thing. They do. In their heart or in their mind or whatever, they think that escaping the system is a beautiful thing, right? They're van lifers, right? There wouldn't be no roads if people wasn't paying taxes, right? But then you want to bail out and say, no, you don't want to pay taxes. No, you don't want to pay, because let me tell you something. The majority, well, a huge portion of our taxes come from property taxes. A huge portion when it comes to, our government, when it comes to our education, when it comes to our safety, okay? A lot of that comes from taxes, right? And I was thinking, like, my God, when we see people, living in vans, we worry about them. Yes, we do. We worry about their safety. We worry, about the weather conditions that they could be facing. We worry about them. But then on the other hand, we already know, oh yeah, you're just passing through, right? Realistically, they are van lifers, hobos that just pass through, and most people barely have enough time to maintain a bond with their own family members, much less somebody that's just passing through. Okay? So, and then, when they say, well, nobody wants, to seed them, make them feel like they're part of their community, then they make their own community. But, even in the process of them making their own community, they're not buying, outhouses, so that people can, go to the restroom properly, or, leasing a dumpster. They're not doing none of that, But, people who are still in the system, we have to pay for that service. We're willing to pay for that service. If we got a job, we're willing to pay for those services if we have a job. And sometimes, people who pay for that service gets a little bit disgruntled when they see that people who won't pay for it, and they won't take their stuff to the city dump. Or properly dispose of their garbage. So what I'm saying is, like, I've been in home ownership for approximately 25 years, right? In those 25 years, I'm paying government taxes and I'm paying property taxes. And I also pay income taxes. People who don't have ownership, but they work, they're just paying income taxes. Now, income taxes are significant, sure. Okay, no doubt. But I pay those also. I've always paid those. Right? I've been paying into income tax since 1975. Before a lot of y'all was even born. So yeah. And when you start seeing that, that certain people who have more investment have a higher decision in the planning and the organizing and what, should be paid attention to, this is where a lot of people, especially the ones who are like, well, we'll never have home ownership, right? And yet, we try to tell y'all, you have to, educate yourself so that you can either be, an entrepreneur, which is a skill, a trade, a craft, if you go on to higher education, the higher education is so that you could be more of a professional in the area. And you can be a professional in the area as far as being, able to teach others. You can be a professional, a professor level. A professor level. I kind of messed myself up saying professional, but I meant to say like professor level. And so many people, they don't want to listen and understand, the system, and don't feel bad about rebelling against the system that they didn't even learn. Right? I mean, hell, even the criminal doesn't want to always every day be a criminal. They would hope that, they would get enough money and that they could, invest in something that, that they even took the money for. Unless you got that money And most of the time people will do that unless they got the money through illegal means. If you got the money through illegal means, it's just a matter of time before consequences is going to hit you at the most inconvenient time to cause you to lose the money that you thought you had. So, not wanting to necessarily discount people who just make, an income contribution, because some people with income, they make very sizable, contributions. And even some people who are property owners and make sizable, income, has found loopholes and ways to make less contribution than others.